So very nice to see all of you this morning, and I see some familiar faces, some old, I won't say old faces, familiar faces, and some new faces. So that's great. I hope you're enjoying the conference. My goal today is to provide you with some ideas for planning a more engaging lesson, and in particular, how to integrate a textbook with supplemental activities in a way that provides your students with a richer and more comprehensive learning experience. Textbooks are a very useful tool for organizing your lesson. They provide structure in terms of the content sorry, thoroughly, in terms of the content to present and also the order in which to present it. And textbooks come in different levels, so you can choose material that's appropriate based on your students' abilities. The downside of textbooks is they're really designed for a general audience, and you will want your lesson to be aligned to your students' specific needs and goals. So the way you can do that is by using the book as a foundation for your lesson, and then building and expanding on what the book offers by including materials and activities that you know are relevant and important to your students. Now, I'm going to use the Ventures book as my sample textbook for this presentation, but I think you'll find that most books are laid out in a similar manner and can be used as the foundational basis for your lesson. Sorry, come here. Okay, everybody see this okay? See the screen? Okay, so today we're going to just do a quick review of general guidelines for lesson planning, and then we're going to look at the how a ventures unit is broken down into 5 different components, and then we'll take a look at materials and activities that will supplement each of those components. Okay, so, well, most of you are experienced tutors, but always a good idea to go back and review a little bit. So in terms of putting your lesson together, you want to center your lesson on a topic that's relevant to your students. You want to include lots of pictures to make sure that students understand what you're talking about. Always good to use repetition drills for introducing and practicing grammar. Make sure you include dialogue in your lesson so that your students have an opportunity to practice real-life conversation. And then all of those things that you've done in the way of listening and speaking, you want to reinforce by including some reading and writing activities. And then, of course, whenever possible, you want to add an element of fun to your lesson. So just do something that's a little different from, reading in the book or filling in a worksheet, just for a change of pace. Okay, so this is how Ventures is broken down, and probably most books are similar. The beginning of the unit is an introduction of the topic, and that will include some listening and speaking activities, and generally the focus is on building some vocabulary. And then there's a grammar focus, a reading section, a writing section, and in Ventures there happens to be something called life skills, which is like real life application. We are going to focus on Unit 8, which is about work, and we're going to look at each of the components and then talk about the materials that you would also include to complement what's in that component. Okay, but before we even open the book with our students, sometimes it's good to do a little warm-up to introduce your topic. And so I have a picture here that I would like you to write a few sentences about. So I just want you to take a minute and write down couple sentences about what you see, what you think's going on, whatever you like. And then I'm going to ask some of you to share with the group. How are we doing? Does somebody have something they'd like to share with us?
Joshua says it must be 2020. Jean Dolan, ineffective multitasking.
Okay, actually, I would like you guys to, I'd like you guys to tell me what you wrote. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put it in the chat box.
I have a couple, Barb.
Okay, Oriel, go ahead.
Sure. The administrative assistant is very busy. She is multitasking. She's answering the phone and taking messages.
Okay, great, thank you. Tina, you had your hand up before?
Yep, I had a woman in a red shirt is an office worker who is very busy. She's overwhelmed, her desk is messy, and she has 2 phones.
Okay, good, good. Someone else?
You said you always wanted to use pictures, so you can pick this is a picture of the word busy.
Okay, good, good. Anybody else? One more person like to
Rich?
share?
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. This lady appears to be the busiest one at the office. Perhaps she's an executive secretary for a vice president with a lot of responsibility.
Okay, okay, great, great. Anybody else? You guys seem anxious. Anybody else want to?
I have a question. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't know if it's the same thing that you're trying for us to do, but when I use pictures and I ask my students to describe the picture, I want them to tell me exactly what they see. I don't want them to assume she was a personal secretary or that she is an accountant or I just want them to tell me exactly what they see in the picture. Is that correct? Because I mean, myself, I wrote the secretary, the woman in the picture looks like an overwhelmed secretary. I mean, I don't know if she's a secretary. I don't know if she's overwhelmed. So those were 2 things that I assumed. And that's exactly what I tell my students not to do.
Okay,
So I just want your opinion on that.
I would say that, yeah, that's a good point. I would say that you can use pictures in different ways. And if that is the objective, to describe exactly what's in the picture, then that's how you explain it to the students. When I'm using this as a picture for a warm-up and I just want to get the students' ideas about it, I don't put too many parameters on it. I just want to see what they can say. And sometimes students will just describe what's in the picture, and sometimes students will make up a little story and imagine something just like you did, right? So everybody's looking at the same picture, but people are coming up with different ideas. And this is sort of an open exercise. That's the way it's designed, so that the students can tell me whatever they want.
So Barbara, Karen had her hand raised.
Yes. Sorry,
Carol had her.
Yeah. So
Carol?
the picture lends itself to all different levels. I'm sorry about my dog. So you can use this at the beginning level for word recognition, and you can use it, sorry. But also you want to aim to move the students higher. So you want to push them to do sentences as well. So the creative aspect of it is certainly acceptable and pushes students to a higher level of discourse.
Thanks, Carol. That's a good point too. And actually, that's a great segue into what I was going to say next, which is, yes, you can use this activity at different levels. Just to give you an example, this was a low-level student wrote woman, phone, pen, book, cap, secretary, cap, and pen. Okay? But then a mid-level student wrote, she is the secretary, have a pencil in the mouth, for nervous. She have write and phone, she's very busy. Okay? A higher level student wrote, today I had a very busy day at work. The telephone of the office didn't stop to ring. I had to pick it up more than 100 times. The manager gave a lot of documents to process. Time was not enough to finish everything. Okay, so I think that's one of the nice things about an exercise like this is that it can be for different levels, and people can write, take it from the concrete to the more imaginative. How do you think this type of activity helps introduce the topic?
You're throwing out a lot of new vocabulary. You can see how much vocabulary the students know. Also based on their grammar, you can sort of, like, as you just pointed out, you can sort of determine their level. It's a very good assessment tool. You can determine, especially if you have a new group, are they very low, are they intermediate, are they a little bit more advanced by the way that they answer.
Yes, exactly. And an exercise like this actually does give you a much better idea of your students' writing ability than if you have them like filling in the blank in a workbook. And then, we can sort of use this as a starting point for the conversation. Okay, this is this woman's job. What's your job? Do you work in an office? Are you busy? Do you answer the phone? Okay, so it's a starting point for our lesson. The nice thing for you is that this type of warm-up doesn't require a lot of prep. You just find your picture, which you can do easily now on Google. There's no right or wrong about it, so the students don't really have to worry about that. And of course, it's sort of a flexible activity. You just change the picture based on your topic. Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Regarding, oh, we lost you. Or we have, okay.
No, yeah, I'm here.
Regarding presenting an image, that also in response to or following up on what Millie had said, presenting an image also allows you a communication that is happening between you and your student. It doesn't require words. So there's a base understanding there, and it allows them to kind of guide what they see in terms of the lesson as well, because if the feedback that they give you, I find working on an individual basis with a student, the feedback they give kind of guides what we talk about and is more relevant to what their specific needs are. And so we go in that direction. And that's kind of like the jumping off point, because it's the thing that we have in common, is being able to understand what that visual means.
Yeah, good point, Lynn. And why pictures, I feel, are just so important in ESL, really, regardless of your student's level.
Right.
Okay, so now we're ready to open our book. The topic of Unit 8 is work. Some of the other topics that you might see in books are like friends and family, health, time, shopping, recreation. So topics of general interest to most students, which is helpful when you're working with a group, right? If you're working with an individual, you can really focus your lesson. But if you're working with a group, you're trying to find topics that are of general interest to everybody. And each unit opens with a large picture like this that you can use to start a conversation about the new topic. Okay, so we did our warm up. We've started talking a little bit about work. How would you use this picture to continue the conversation about work? What sorts of questions might you ask?
Well, how many different jobs do you see being done? There are many people working today. What are they doing? What are they doing in their job?
Okay, good, thanks. Somebody else?
Yeah, so you could ask the student if they have much of an opportunity to practice their English at work, since we've got a lot of folks there, and there may be different languages.
Yes, good point.
Well, also, this is sort of a lunch scene, and some of these students may have had the same experience of being at work and talking to somebody in a lunch. You might ask them, do they have lunch with other coworkers? A little bit different with COVID now, possibly, but just ask them if they did, or they used to eat with other people. And so they can share that experience. That's what this looks like in a way. So.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so those are really good suggestions. I mean, you may be starting with something fairly basic, like what is his job? What is her job? Who's the person fixing the lights? Who are the people wearing uniforms? And then kind of expand to these other things that you're talking about, just to really get conversation going with your students.
Another thing too is I use this lesson, and for me it was a little review of colors. What colors do you see? Look at the different people and tell me what color shirt or whatever, just as a kind of reminder of how to describe people. The person, the woman in the red shirt or whatever. Different colors.
You could use it for that too. So really, we're doing information gathering here. We're trying to find out what the students know, how well can they communicate, and how much do they know in terms of the topic of work. So one of your main strategies is going to be to ask questions, and there are just a couple different questions that you want to include. So we have yes/no questions. So you may be asking, oh, let's look at this man in the red shirt. Is he a plumber? Look at the woman in the brown skirt. Is she a cashier? We can also ask either or questions. Okay. Is he a plumber or a cashier? And then the third type of question would be a W question, like a who, what, where, when, why. So who is he? Or what is his job? Or where does she work? Okay. What do you notice about these questions, the way that I have them laid out here?
They go from maybe the lowest level to a more advanced level?
Right. The easiest questions for students to answer are yes or no questions, and then a little bit more challenging would be either or, and then the most challenging are the W questions. So if your students are lower level, you're using more of the yes or no or either or questions. And for more advanced students, you're going to include more of the W questions. And keep in mind that the first two types of questions don't yield too much information, but the third type does. So your goal is, if your goal is generating conversation or finding out information, then you want to make sure that you're asking a lot of those W questions.
Barbara, when I have a true or false or one of those, I ask my students to answer me in a complete sentence. So that gives them more practice. They don't just say no, they say no, she is not a cashier, or yes, she is a cashier.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the way to go. Okay. So earlier we discussed needing to expand students' knowledge sort of beyond what's in the textbook. So once you feel that your students are comfortable with the material in Ventures, then you will want to consider using other resources. And one that I think you'll find particularly useful is the Oxford Picture Dictionary. This not only does this have pictures of like everything you could imagine or be talking about with your students, but the newer versions also include some short stories with like pre-reading, during reading, and post-reading questions and other suggestions for activities.
Barb, is that available online, or do you scan the pages that you need?
The Oxford, well, I scan the pages that I'm going to use in my class, but I was going to suggest, if you don't have one, you can go to Amazon and get like a used copy for like $8. I'm not sure, Oriel, if they have like an ebook option, but it's something to check. But I have a free scanning app on my phone, so I just scan the pictures and
cool,
and put them in my. Okay, so why might you choose a picture like this to include in your lesson?
Shows different types of jobs.
And what type of jobs? I mean, where is this? What is this a picture of?
Some kind of warehouse or company.
Yeah.
Many employees with all different kinds of jobs.
Okay, yeah, good. But a warehouse setting, all right? And I might choose something like this if my students worked, or a few of my students worked at a warehouse. Okay, let's see how good your warehouse vocabulary is. So, how about, if the pictures are numbered here, I don't know if you can see the numbers too well, but can anybody tell me who number 1 is?
Assembly line work. Oh, number 1, sorry.
At the office manager?
Manager.
Okay, maybe the manager. How about picture 2?
Designer.
Sorry, say that again.
Designer.
Yes, a designer. Number 3.
Computer IT.
Okay, yeah.
Quality control, maybe?
Yeah, maybe quality control. How about number 4?
Inspector.
Okay, he might be an inspector. They call him the line supervisor.
Oh, okay.
How about I'm asking these questions because I didn't know the names of a lot of these jobs, and I've had students who told me their job was picker, or selector, and I'm like, okay, what? Oh, what is that? How about number 8?
Packer.
A packer, right? And 10?
Loader.
Okay, might be a loader. They actually call this the order puller.
Hey.
The order puller. And 14?
Logistics.
Maybe.
Truck driver? I don't know.
Truck driver.
He's actually the shipping clerk.
Oh.
The shipping clerk. Okay. Good. So you're learning a few things today. Okay. So we're talking about building vocabulary.
So Barbara, there was a question.
Yes.
The question is, these pictures are pretty small. Is that something we need to worry about?
These pictures are small. You mean the way you're seeing them on the screen right now?
Peggy, could you unmute and ask and clarify?
Yes. Given I've got a 17-inch screen, but even so, I can't
it's hard for me to see the numbers on the pictures because the pictures are small. So maybe it wouldn't matter if it weren't inside of a rectangle that said build a vocabulary using pictures.
Yes, yes. I think if you're looking at the book, the actual picture in the book, it's clear. And I could have made it bigger. I guess you could make things bigger for your students.
Okay.
You know, you can show them something on the screen and then you can kind of do a Control plus and make your screen a little bit bigger to
Right.
bring it into, to make it clearer for students.
Thank you.
Okay.
Barbara, I have another quick question for you.
Mhm.
L'Oreal. So I noticed that I think in the dictionary it has the words, the vocabulary underneath. Did you purposely not show the words when you showed the picture?
Yeah. Because, you know, you want to see what the students know first, and then you bring in the written words for them.
Okay, great.
Generally, we start orally. You start your exercises orally, and then you sort of segue into writing. Okay, so it's possible there may be something that isn't in the Oxford Picture Dictionary that you want to use in your lesson, and so then the best place to go is Google. So we saw in Ventures that they introduced some restaurant jobs. I think it was server, bus person, cashier, and cook, but there might be other restaurant jobs that your students have or want to have or know more about, like manager, hostess, dishwasher, food preparer. So then I might bring in some additional pictures like this for the students to talk about. This helps build their vocabulary and expand their conversation about work. And it gives you a chance, if you're choosing the pictures like this, to focus on the things that are really relevant to your students. Okay, so what are we going to do with these pictures after we talk about them with students? Well, one of the things we can do is like make some flashcards, do some matching. In the old days, or I guess you can still really do this now, you might show your students some pictures and ask them about it. Sometimes I put the word on the back of the picture. Sometimes I have separate word cards that you can work with. But now in this online world, you might ask your students to use the annotation tools to do some matching. So let's see how your skills are. Can you guys figure out how to use the annotation tools and maybe use a line or whatever you want to match up the word with the picture? If you go to the top of your screen where it says view options, you should see annotate. And then that will bring up some tools. There we go. You guys got it. Perfect.
Oh, I can see that now.
Okay, so I think you guys have the idea. So what else could you maybe do with pictures and words? You guys have any thoughts, suggestions, things that you've done with your students?
Create a storyline.
Okay. Create a storyline.
I find with the more advanced students, pictures lead us into speaking about emotions and how people perhaps, how they feel in a photo or how they might feel in a photo.
Okay.
Role playing.
Yep, we can definitely use some of these pictures for role playing.
Maybe try to talk about what is the difference between a waitress and a dishwasher. What are their different jobs? Are they sometimes do the same thing, or they're different all the time? What is a hostess?
Right, and we can talk about job skills. We could talk about the advantages and disadvantages of different jobs. What do you notice about these pictures?
You can hardly see them.
Okay, let's see. Okay,
There you go.
magic. What do you notice about these pictures?
Restaurant work.
Yeah, it's restaurant work. Why do you think I might have focused on restaurant work?
Because it's relevant to the students.
Yeah, yeah.
You could do healthcare
It's-
too. That seems to be a common one for ESL students.
Right. You want to use pictures that are relevant to your students.
I like that the pictures are active, that they're not passive. So you can use it for work on verbs, or what are they doing? They are cooking. And I like that there's a lot of movement in the pictures.
They're multicultural, which is nice to see from a visual representational perspective, but it also allows them to kind of picture themselves in these jobs, you know, either in the jobs or on the other end where, you know, or as client, you know, as patrons.
You know, that's a really good point, Lynn, and it is something to keep in mind when you're choosing pictures, right? To make them, you know, sort of realistic for the students.
So they can
the other,
relate to them more easily.
yes, yes. And the other thing that somebody had noted about these pictures at one time is that these are different levels of jobs. So you might talk about the progression, you know, all right, you come into the restaurant, you're just a dishwasher, but then maybe you can move up and be a waiter or a server, and then the chef or a hostess, whatever, you know, make your way. There's room for advancement.
This also is a good way to increase their vocabulary, because just like in the warehouse, how many jobs are there? The thing is, if you think of the restaurant and think, well, I don't know how to cook. Well, no, but there's other jobs you can do. There's many jobs in the restaurant, depending how big it is. So it gives them more of a chance to, oh, look at all these different people. They all have different jobs, but they all work at one place.
Right, right. So, you know, so these simple pictures can really, right, expand into a very large conversation. Okay, now also in terms of vocabulary building, you could use a word search that you can find online. You can play bingo with your students. There is a site called bingobaker.com where you can generate bingo cards on a variety of topics. So you could generate cards that have to do only with jobs. And then Bingo Baker sends you a link that you send to your students and you can play online. I haven't done this yet. It's on my list of things to do, but it seems like it would be a fun activity. In terms of the word search, is somebody using their annotation tools already? You could use the annotation tools.
I have a question. How universal is the game of bingo? Is it in other countries too, under different names, obviously?
I don't know, but I think it's a simple enough game that you know you can kind of explain it to your students. The one that's a little more complicated for students, that sometimes takes more explanation, is a crossword puzzle.
Oh yeah.
I noticed when I tried that with students that they didn't have that concept of down, you know, words down
Up
and
and
across.
yeah, down and across.
But they were more advanced and you could explain that. But bingo's pretty simple. Okay, so the next unit in Ventures is listening. And in this particular component, well, at this level, this is actually a level 1 book. for lower level students, they would listen to a couple of sentences and then they have to match what they heard with a picture. And for higher level students, they might listen to several paragraphs and then have to match that with a picture. In Unit 8, which is the one that we're working on here, the listening exercise introduces past tense vocabulary to talk about jobs that people had before compared to the jobs they have now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I do want to say that listening is really an important skill for ESL students to master. It takes a lot of practice, and especially now that we're working online, students aren't getting some of the visual communication cues that they get when they're face to face with you. So, you know, they really have to listen more carefully. So this is a good skill to work on. And so besides what's offered in the book, which is generally maybe a page of listening exercises, I would encourage you to include some supplementary activities as well. And again, tailor them to your students' needs and interests.
Hey, Barb.
So,
I just want to mention that I've come across a really good website for listening. It's called esl-lab.com. And it has 3 different levels: easy, medium, and difficult. And there's topics, there's about 20 or 30 topics for each. And they can listen to a short dialogue. It's about 2 minutes long. And then there's questions that they have to answer. And sometimes I assign those to my students to do during the week. And then I actually have them write the questions and answers. It's usually 5, and send them to me via email. But it's very good for listening practice. It's esl-lab.com.
Could you, Laura, Oriole, would you mind putting that in the chat box for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you, because that's a good segue into what I was going to talk about, which is that one of the exercises that you can use is to play a video for your students or assign them a video. It's good if they have the questions ahead of time so that, you know, as they're listening, they can be trying to answer the questions. You can also read a short passage to your students and then ask them to summarize it for you or tell you what the main point is. You can do a dictation, so you can dictate words or sentences, and which is actually a combination listening and writing exercise, but very important listening exercise. You can use pronunciation pairs, which I'll explain in a minute. And I don't know that this works that well online, but when we're back to face-to-face, you know, different variations of Simon Says, you know, touch your elbow, touch your head, but maybe also sit down, stand up, turn around, turn right, turn left, that kind of, that type of activity. Okay, so here's maybe a dictation that I would do. Why, if I was using Unit 8, and why do you think I created these particular sentences?
You're talking about all the different occupations in the restaurant or in that first picture?
Right, right. So we're going back and I'm dictating sentences that relate back to what we talked about, either in the picture, right, where there was a cashier and there was an electrician and there was a busboy, or the other additional pictures that we talked about afterwards. But
So, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say some of these are all actions. And so that helps people to understand different activities that could be done within the restaurant. The other thing I was going to say, sometimes what I do is I write it so it's out of sequence. It's very obviously out of sequence. You know, somebody comes into the restaurant or somebody's paying the bill, so that they're learning also this sequence in which something might happen in a restaurant. And so, so then they have to put it in the right sequence as well. So we can get that, sort of sneak that into this type of lesson.
That's a great idea, Janice. Yeah. Sort of telling a story, being able to tell the story in the order. I thought you were going to say that you mixed up the words, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but
that works too. But yeah, it helps people. whole process from beginning to end. So
These sentences are nice because you have the person, the subject, and then the verb, what they're doing, and then the object related to that action. So they're structured that way. So they're learning the relationship between all those words. And the structure of the sentence also is subject, verb, and then the object.
Right. They're
Very
not too
consistent.
complicated.
Right. Very
But
consistent.
mostly they relate back to what we've talked about before. So the whole idea is that you're always, going back, you're offering repetition of the things that you've taught before, but in different ways.
It keeps the students thinking about other like the warehouse, other occupations, gives them an idea of like a little dictionary. What does a salesperson do? What does a waitress do? And then when you go to the next other occupations, it keeps them in mind, well, how can I say it in one small sentence what this person does?
Yes, and that actually, and even from there, you can see how maybe, we're actually going to work up to an interview where somebody might have to talk about what they do, right? And some of their skills. Okay, so I mentioned pronunciation pairs. In this activity, you would give your students a list like the one that I have on the left here, and you would read the words, and the students have to circle the word that they heard. And I want to tell you that I added wonder and wander to this list just recently because I had been teaching a class and one of the students was reading me something and I didn't understand what she was reading. And I asked her to repeat the word. And I said to her, "Did you say wander or wonder?" And she said, "I don't know, those sound the same to me." So I was like, "No, wander and wonder." And the students were like, "What?" And they actually, one of the gals got her phone out, like used a voice app and played the words and still said, they sound the same to me. So, so this is really, something that is good to work on a little bit with your students, especially with those short vowel sounds, which are, not familiar to a lot of people, certainly not Spanish speakers. The other ways.
Do you use the pronunciation pairs book at all to
You
pick
could.
the words?
I just Google. I mean, generally this comes up in your class, right? You might be saying something about what people watch, and people think you're talking about wash, and so you would stop and, just do a mini lesson on it.
No, I meant like this book because it starts with the long E sound.
Yeah, pronunciation pairs. It's a good book. I just went online and Googled.
And just Googled it. Okay. Okay, I just wondered.
On the right-hand side, I have just a list of words, and I would do this. It would be listening exercise, but for spelling. So you would say the word, and the students would have to write them down. You'd be surprised. This is always a good thing to try with your students because you'd be surprised how different, what you say, how they write it. So definitely try and include some of these listening exercises for your students.
Bob, sometimes what I do is I use like a dialogue. I pick up two of them and let them do a dialogue, and you can hear the words, be able to identify it.
Yep, we're going to get to dialogue.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another great activity.
Okay.
So the next component in Ventures,
Barbara,
the next component of the unit.
For a moment, Barbara, I just want to interrupt and remind everybody, please mute yourselves when you're not speaking. Thank you.
If I could also just interject one thing, I have found with my students that are medium to advanced levels that the speed of the speaker, how quickly they're speaking, truly influences obviously their understanding of what you're saying. And many times I've heard them comment, well, I didn't know what they were speaking about. And it was because the speaker was speaking very quickly. So I think that's critical. The other, when it comes to listening, again, at that level, I had purchased many years ago an inexpensive tape recorder. And when they're speaking, I tape them and then they listen to their own speech. And many times they can correct themselves. Oh, did I really say that? And they can, and it helps immensely and they truly enjoy it. Anyway,
that's yeah, that's also a great idea, and I'm going to show you an example of that, of students recording themselves in a minute. Okay, so the really nice feature of Ventures and really any textbook is that the experts have chosen the grammar points to focus on. And this is really helpful because I think, as you will discover, or maybe you already know, there are just so many things to teach your students that sometimes it's really hard to decide, you know, what to choose to teach. So in this particular case, the first grammar lesson is the verb to be in present and past, and it's going to be used to talk about jobs we had before and jobs we have now. Okay, so kind of following from the listing exercise. So this type of exercise, or yeah, this particular grammar focus lends itself nicely to a discussion with your students about the jobs that they have now and what they were doing in their native country. The second grammar focus in Unit 8 is the word can, as in, can you cook? Can you use a computer? Okay, so this is how we're going to segue from talking about jobs to talking about job skills. And, you know, you'll see some references to that as we go along. The grammar component of the book provides opportunities for students to practice, but usually not enough to really master the material. Okay, you can, if you can see on the two examples I have here, there's really only maybe six questions or 6 opportunities for students to answer. If you have a group of 4 students, that means, you know, people don't even get 2 chances really to practice. All right, so this is when the supplementary materials really come in handy. Now, also sort of related to that discussion about job skills, I'm going to bring in some pictures of jobs that I know my students have had in the past, or maybe they have right now, or they would like to have. And we're going to talk about what our students do now, what they did before, and we're going to talk about some of the skills and qualifications that are needed for those jobs. And as part of the discussion about job skills, we might do what I like to call an A to Z exercise, where you ask students to come up with a skill for each letter of the alphabet. And then when we get done with that, maybe we're going to match the skills to our pictures. But what I would like to do is just take a minute to do this exercise with you. So we're going to go through from A to Z and talk about job skills. You can see that I put a couple in here for the letter A, analytical, the letter B, brave, but how about if you guys give me some other job skills, starting with the letter C, just call them out.
Caring.
Caring, D.
Deliver.
Sorry?
Deliver.
Deliver, like delivery skills?
Yeah, well, it's more of a skill than.
Okay. I just want to make sure I heard what you're saying. E?
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. Oh boy, can I spell that?
No, I can never spell it.
F.
Funny.
Focused.
Okay, funny or focused, depending on what kind of job you have, right? Either of those would be good. G.
Gregarious.
Okay, good. H.
Helpful.
Helpful. I.
Intelligent.
J. This is a tough one.
Jolly.
Just.
Just. Okay, I like that. I like jolly too, but I like just.
Jolly.
Sort of apropos of the times. K.
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Okay. L.
Loving.
Loving.
Okay. M. As you all are with your students, I know. M.
Motivated.
Motivated. Good. N.
Nurturing.
Okay, good. O.
Open.
Organized.
Organized is good.
Organized.
Okay, and I want to hear from someone who hasn't said anything yet today. P.
Punctual.
Persistent. Patience.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Patient.
Guys took me
You got what you're asking for.
Started.
All right, good. Same again. Anybody haven't heard from Q?
Questioning.
Questioning. Okay. Good. R.
Responsible.
Good. S.
Savvy. Spelling.
Okay.
Studious.
T.
Timely.
Trustworthy.
Timely.
Timely. All right. Timely and trustworthy. All right. I like both of those. U.
Understanding.
Okay. Good. V.
Visual.
Visual. Good. W.
Work ethic.
Okay. Good work ethic. X.
X-ray.
What's that?
X-ray.
X-ray.
Good skill if you're an X-ray technician.
That's right. X-ray vision.
Okay, well, we're going to leave that one blank. We'll leave that one blank for now. Okay, Y. Sorry, Y.
Ernest. No, not Ernest. I'm sorry.
Or Z.
Zealous.
Zealous. Okay. Okay, good. All right. So now if this was, I was doing this with my students and we got through all of this, which we probably wouldn't have a word at every letter, we'd have some blanks and then I would say, okay, we're going to go through the lesson and see, we're going to be talking about different things related to job skills, and then we'll come back at the end of the lesson, see if we can fill in anything else. And if not, then this is what you assign your students for homework. Now, how do you think this kind of activity might help your students?
Well, it's going to increase.
Why might you use it?
It increases vocabulary because they hear each other say words they might not know. And they also are speaking. That's the main thing. Getting them to say something out loud is always a plus.
They're thinking.
Yes.
They're thinking.
That's yeah. It's it's a good thought that they're just speaking. All right. You could come back later on and do this as sort of a writing activity, but usually I use it as a speaking activity to begin with. A lot of students might know some words, but they don't know how to spell them. So if you were pressing them to write the words down, they might say, I don't know anything, right? But they could say the word for you. Sometimes that's easier for them. Okay, anything else about that type of activity? Where might you go next?
It lets you know their pronunciation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. It's pronunciation practice. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And just so you know, like I just did that in Word. I created that in Word, and then you would share your screen with the students, or you could use your whiteboard. No, this is not what I wanted. Sorry, not the right thing. Oh, here we go. Screen's here. Okay. Okay. So again, we said we would do that. Then maybe we come back and we talk about these pictures. Maybe match up some. What skills do you need? Which skills go with which job? Okay. Another couple activities that you could use to practice grammar on the left is what I might call word cards. These are sentences that were created based on the grammar that we were looking at in Ventures, right? So I have, we were cooks, I was a nurse, he was an electrician. I made this in Word, I would cut it up into individual words, and each student would get a little envelope with the words, and they would have to lay them out on the table and put the words in the right order. This is, I think, a good activity for what we call our kinetic learners, so people that need to be doing something to learn. But I also think it helps most students to move the words around. There's something about physically moving the words and putting them in place that kind of solidifies the grammar in their mind. So I really like this activity for low-level students. For higher-level students, you could use scrambled sentences, which is pretty much the same idea, but you don't have so many little pieces of paper to keep track of. But I would put these in the fun category. They're like puzzles, and the students really, really like doing them. Okay, but here's the challenging part. How are we going to do this online? All right, so we can do this using something called Jamboard. Maybe some of you guys have seen this or used it. It has different purposes, but for us, we would use it as a whiteboard with sticky notes. And you would create the sticky notes ahead of time, put them on the whiteboard, share the Jamboard with your students by putting a link in the chat box, and then the students manipulate the sticky notes to create proper sentences. So I tried this last night, and it became a big mess. So I'm going to try something different today, which is I'm going to first show you how this works on Jamboard. And then I'm going to put a link in the chat box and give you a separate activity to do. So let me see if I can do this right today. Oh dear, no, that wasn't right. Here we go. Okay, try this. Oh my God. Okay, can you guys all see this now? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
It's blank, right? It's blank. Okay.
Screen is blank, yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. here are my word cards. Okay, so this would be for the more basic students, the sentences, and what they have to do is kind of move the cards around to create, but I'll show you on the,
Yeah,
okay.
you can just dump
So
them in
here's
there.
our scrambled sentences. So maybe,
Yeah, just, that's fine. Yeah, because I'll just open them
okay.
up.
So first of all, what I'd like
Molly
you
will
to
be
do
so
is
excited.
She knows, right? She knows
maybe mute yourself. Okay.
I'm
So
just-
what I'd
excuse me,
like you to
What
do,
program is this in, or what are you actually
this
showing?
is Google. This is a Google Jamboard. Sorry.
Okay.
This is a Google Jamboard. So you would go to Google, just like you go to Google Drive or Google Translate, you'll see Google Jamboard. Okay. And I created these sticky notes and I put these words on them. So I have 4 sentences here. Okay, either color, each sentence is separate color. And I want you to unscramble the sentence for me, and then I'm going to show you how it works, how we're going to physically unscramble the sentence. But first I need you to unscramble the sentence. Actually, you can pick any one that you want.
The first one,
Okay, go ahead.
just to say the sentence, a farm worker needs to be strong and hardworking.
Okay, good. A farm worker needs to be, what was the next word?
Strong.
Mm-hmm.
And where did and go? Oh, there it
Over
is.
here. And hardworking. Good, excellent. Okay, how about the second one? Somebody else?
A service store clerk needs good customer skills.
Ah, okay, all right. Did anybody else come up with anything else?
A store clerk needs good customer service skills.
Okay, actually, I think either one works, but needs good. So there might be a couple different possibilities, right? Good, a store clerk. Okay, and the next one?
A firefighter needs to wear proper attire.
Good. Okay, so you get the idea how this is how it's going to work. Okay. But what I want to do now is I can do this properly. Okay, so in the chat box, I'm going to put the link to the Jamboard. And what I want you to do is to click on the link and see if you can find yourself to the place that we just were.
So Barbara, I have a general question for you about the Jamboard. So it looks like everybody's working on the same Jamboard. Is there a way that you could give each student their own Jamboard, let them put the sentences in order and then have them share their screen? Or does you generally just use one?
Well, that's a good question, Oriel. I don't have that much experience yet with it. I think the thing is that you need a Google account, I think, to do this. So if you're not, does somebody want to add to this? Say something.
I did sit in on some Jamboard training. I think you can create a separate Jamboard for different people, and you can say, you go to claim your Jamboard. You might have, say, 10 copies if you have 10 students of the same thing. Go to the Jamboard, write your name on one, and that's yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Francisca was
Joe?
she's right. Like a Jamboard, you can have 20 sheets on a Jamboard. So you can assign each sheet, or they call it a
That's a
frame
good
on
idea.
Jamboard. Each
Okay, have
sheet.
you guys clicked? Oh, sorry, Joe. What?
No, I think I answered the question.
Have you guys clicked on the link?
Yes.
Okay, and so you're here on the Jamboard?
Yes.
Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, and you're on the page, all right. So now what I need you to do is go to page 5, all right? So at the top of the Jamboard, you'll see a little frame and it has numbers in it. And you should see like 1/7, 2/7. Go, if you click on the forward arrow, it should bring you to, okay, page 5. I see somebody's there. And what I want you to do is get a sticky note, go and find a sticky note, and I want you to write a job skill on it. And then I want you to put it on the board, okay?
You want to share your screen, Barbara?
Oh, boy, okay.
Jamboard screen.
Can you see this now, Joe?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Okay, good. Good. Analytical, answering the telephone, communication skills, good. You guys have, okay.
Just a question, where do you get the sticky note?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. So if you look on the left-hand side, there's a little toolbar. And 1, 2, 3, the 4th icon down is a little note. And click on that. I don't know if you guys can see me doing this. So I clicked on the sticky note and then you just type in what you want to say. And you save it. You can change the color of the sticky note. Okay, good. I think you guys have the idea. Is anybody here who hasn't gotten a note on yet? Okay, good. Okay. All right. That's, something for you to play around with if you haven't done it before. I'm still playing around with it, believe me, trying to it has a lot of uses. You can do a lot of things with it. You can actually put a word search on the Jamboard, and then your students could use the drawing tools on the Jamboard to find the words. Okay. Now, can you guys all see my screen again?
Yes.
Yeah, excuse me, how do you get the Jamboard up? I just came in, I was at another meeting. How do you get the Jamboard?
There's a link in the chat box. If you want to click on the link, it takes you to the Jamboard.
Okay, and the stickies, how do you get them to stick onto the Jamboard?
So you click on, there's a toolbar, and one of the icons on the toolbar is a sticky note. You just click on the sticky note and it'll pop up and you write something on it.
Okay.
Sorry, I
thank
don't
you.
want to go back and revisit that again.
Okay, thank you.
My brain's about ready to explode with Jamboards at this point. Okay, so just another note about grammar. If you have higher level students, I would definitely recommend this book. 100 grammar-based conversation questions. It's nice because it combines conversation with grammar. So there's different chapters, and each chapter is a different grammar point. So for example, one of the chapters is comparatives, like he's taller than his cousin, and it would give you a little explanation of the rules for using comparatives. And then on the opposite page, it provides you questions that you would ask your students, and to answer the questions, they would have to use that grammar point. So is it better to have many friends or just a few close friends? Or which is more important, money or happiness? Then, the student would have to say, I think happiness is more important than money, right? So it's nice repetition of grammar while also having a good conversation with your students.
Barbara, what's the easiest way to, once you go out of the Jamboard, I had to like navigate a little bit and actually re-enter the meeting. Is there an easy way to get out of the Jamboard and back to the main meeting?
Well, you can get to the meeting by hovering at the bottom of the screen where the little Zoom icon is, camera is,
That's
and
the easy
then
way.
just click on that.
Thanks. I always
You
get
can
lost.
just, you can leave your Jamboard up.
This is a more general question, but many of our students are using Google Drive much more so than in the past. And as you can tell by the questions, people are at very different levels with regard to all of this. For people that want to brush up or people that want to learn it, what's the best way to get up to speed on all of these newer tools in the Google Drive? What's the easiest training or way to do this? And yeah.
Well, I would say, one, you can always Google whatever it is you want to do,
Yeah, I
like
understand,
Google
but-
how to use sticky notes. But the other thing is that we do offer, or at least Literacy New Jersey offers some tech classes. We have some great high school kids, whizzes, computer whizzes, who teach workshops for us. They're really helpful, and they're sort of regularly scheduled. I think they're once or twice a month. My emails on the at the end of the presentation, and if you want to email me, I can send you some information about that. Or Joe, can you think of a better way to get that information to people?
Barbara, there's a lot of good YouTube videos. If you just go to YouTube and search how to use Google Classroom or how to use Google Docs, they range from 3 minutes to 15 minutes. They're tutorials on YouTube that can teach you how to use just about any tool.
That's a good idea as well.
And the Tech Pro that the high school kids that Barbara was referring to, they also offer one-on-one meetings. So we do send that out regularly about those workshops that they have, tech workshops, and you can contact them directly to set up a meeting.
Okay. All right, so I want to move on to conversation. This is also an area that isn't well covered in the book, I don't think, but helping students prepare for everyday conversation is probably one of the most important and challenging tasks for you as a tutor. But we have a great tool for that. It's called the dialogue. A dialogue is essentially a conversation, but it's one that you craft either for your students if they're lower level or with your students if they're higher level. And it's good to base your dialogue on a real life situation, like going to the doctors or a job interview. And a good dialogue will incorporate the vocabulary and grammar from your previous lessons. Okay, so kind of brings everything together in a wrap up. But most important, gives students a chance to practice real life conversation. I would like to try one, and I'm a little reluctant because I did this last night. We had a lot of people, but we'll try it again today. All right. And the scenario that we're going to consider is that your student is interviewing for a job, but we're going to focus on one part of the job interview, and that's talking about your job experience. Okay, because so far in ventures, we've talked about present and past of to be, so talking about what we did before and what we do now, and we talked a little bit about job skills. So what you're going to do is work with a partner, and you're going to come up with a dialogue, 6 to 8 lines that you're going to share with us. Now, the most important, I want you to think about this as an exercise for very basic ESL students, okay? So you want to keep your language simple and your sentences short. The way we're going to do this is using breakout rooms. You're going to be automatically assigned to a breakout room with a partner. I'll give you 5 minutes to write the dialogue together. And then after 5 minutes, you'll get a notice that the breakout room is shutting down. Okay, you have about a minute to wrap everything up. Then we'll come back together and you'll present your dialogue. Now, and you'll need a piece of paper and pencil or something, some way to record your dialogue with your partner. What's important is that everybody has a partner. Okay, so what happened last night was people got assigned to a room, but some people, I guess, I don't know, disappeared or were afraid to do it or something. So there were some people left all by themselves. So please, don't worry. You are automatically taken to a separate space and you're automatically brought back. You don't have to do anything except when I start the room, you'll get a message that says, join, and you just click and say you're going to join. Okay. So are the instructions clear? So it's job interview, and it's just the piece will be about talking about job experience.
Is there any specific job that you want us to apply for, like a warehouse worker or a restaurant job, or just pick
Well,
one?
here's do you see our picture here? You can, the lady and the man with the computer there.
So some kind of an office job?
Yeah, well, whatever you want. I'll leave it up to you guys, okay? You pick.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody good with this? I know there are people who have their video up. I hope if you feel like you're like, I don't want to do this, okay, just leave the meeting for 5 minutes and then come back. Otherwise, you're going to.
This was a more advanced student who was going on a job interview.
That's the
She was
truth.
very good at answering direct questions. But when she had an indirect question, such as,
sorry, Christine,
what is
Tell
your
me about
greatest
yourself.
attribute?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you are qualified for this job? She just could not answer those questions.
So this morning, I mean, I've had this with various students. I've been coaching them to do one of two things. Either say, forgive me, but English is not my first language. Could you please say that again, or could you please rephrase it? And that's one thing. Another one is that if they think they might know sort of what it is, have them say, are you asking me? And then in their own words, say what they think they're being asked.
Yeah.
And both of those techniques have worked really, really well with several students, but this student this morning in particular.
Could I just jump on that? I'm not sure I would say English is not my first language. I would simply say, would you repeat the question? I never I think it would be obvious that English is not the first language, but I never like giving an interviewer a free space. So simply say, would you mind repeating that question?
Right, rephrasing it, or not. I'm saying rephrase rather than repeat, because
just repeat it.
But I think the problem is that they don't understand that word, so that's why I'm trying to say rephrase. So it might give them extra words if they don't know the first word. You see what I mean?
Or what is that? What does that mean?
That's a good way to do it. What does it mean?
Okay. That's definitely something, definitely something important to address, but I'm fearful that we're running out of time here, and I want you guys to So I'm just going to move on and ask maybe one or two volunteers to present their dialogue that they put together. Andy, are you with us?
I am.
Did you have a partner?
I did.
Nice to see
Kathy
you.
Bauer-Coggin was my partner.
Okay, do you guys have something to present?
If I could find it. Yeah, there it is.
Okay, Andy, you want to be the interviewer?
Okay.
Okay.
And we started with the question that was given to us. Tell me about your job experience.
I was an administrative assistant.
Who did you work for?
I worked at a phone store.
And what were your responsibilities or duties?
I answered the phones. I helped the customers.
What software skills do you have?
I know Excel. I know Microsoft Word. And
that's when we were told to rejoin the group.
yes.
But that's perfect. That's perfect. I really liked it. Very simple questions and simple answers. And that would be a very helpful dialogue for sort of a mid-level student to practice for an interview. Okay, excellent. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's a tool that you can use with your students if you have a group, the breakout rooms.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I teach 2 students, but individually. And I always feel kind of at a loss in trying to do conversation like this. I do play a role. Is there any other approach that you would recommend if it's just me and a single student?
You mean in addition to dialogue?
No, I mean, is it always appropriate that I play one of the roles? That's the only answer I've been able to come up with in trying to do conversation or dialogues, where the student is conversing just with me.
I mean, unless you want the student to, write the dialogue with both parts, and then maybe you so that they know what each person says and then switch back and forth.
Okay. All right.
But I know it's one of the benefits of having a group that you can have
Yes.
students work with one another.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of rush through here because I think we have to end a little early to take care of a little administrative business. So in addition to dialogue, or if your students are a little higher level, you can do something more role play of an interview type format. Okay, so this happens to be a page from ISL Collective, and it's interview questions. I think somebody was just talking about this before. It would be like practice questions. So one student could ask the questions and the other student answers things that would typically come up in a job interview. But I've also had students role play. So one is the news reporter and they're asking the other person questions like, tell me about your experience coming to America. And I actually have the students get up and sort of, and play it and act it out in front of everybody. Oh dear, we have so much to do here. And all right, so I would like to this is another activity that I think you might find helpful. And it was a 1-minute elevator pitch. So the students had to write their 1-minute elevator pitch, and then we recorded them. So people were talking about recording before. We recorded on phones. It's a little hard to understand, but you guys are all ESL instructors, so you'll be used to that. But these are actually 2 women who were housekeepers. All right, and they were giving their pitch for their job. So just take a quick listen.
I working for housekeeper for few years. I had car, no problem for transportation, different place. Give me one opportunity and take it time for you and relax. I had good recommendation. I had honest responsibility. My customer enjoyed with my job. Sometimes the customer no have products, no problem, I buy for you. I work in Monday to Friday, pre-estimate, interested, please call me 908-598-7842.
Go.
My name is Maria. Housekeeping. I have good reference, very responsible, available 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Free estimate. Contact me 908-477-0085 or text me. Thank you.
Okay. So that's kind of a fun little exercise that you can do with your students. They just record it on their phone and then they could listen to themselves, and it gives them an opportunity to hear the way they sound and see where they might want to make some adjustments.
So Barbara, there came a question earlier about should we correct the students' grammar when they answer questions about the picture?
You know, corrections are, it depends. If you're trying to encourage students to speak and you want them to talk, then you don't spend too much time correcting them. You know, corrections come more maybe when you give them some work, you give them something specific to do, or, you know, a specific assignment, and then you might, you know, make more corrections with them then. Does that make sense? I think for lower level students, you know, less correcting, because you'll be correcting them all the time, and higher level students will probably ask you to correct them or say, oh, is that right? Or, you know, tell me how to do it the right way. I hope that, does that work?
Are you working for?
Okay, so the next component in Ventures is reading, and each unit has a reading passage and some activities to do. There's generally just one reading passage per unit. So it's good if you can provide some additional opportunities for your students to read. And I'm just going to show you a couple of resources. True Stories is a great reading book. The students love it because they actually are real stories about real people, but they're people who've done crazy things. The lower levels have a lot of pictures to go with the stories. The higher levels, you know, it's more print. The Oxford Picture Dictionary includes stories, and they also have something called the Reading Library. That's like little books about different things, different topics that you can also use with your students. There is a newspaper called News for You that you can get a subscription to. If you are a Literacy New Jersey tutor, you can talk to your program director about getting a subscription for free. It's online, or you can get a paper copy if you like. The News for You is for higher level students. So if you don't have high level students, I recommend Breaking News English, which also has news stories on different topics, but you can choose the level. So the story will come up and then it'll say, try this same story at these levels, you know, level 0, level 1, level 2. So that's really helpful. And then after you read the story, there are a lot of activities that go along with it. So it's almost like a lesson in itself. So very handy. I also love this site, ISL Collective. They have a lot of free printable worksheets on a variety of topics. I chose ones that were related to work, and these again are different levels. The one in the middle is very simple. The one on the left, a little higher level, and then on the right, something that's for higher level students where they would give clues about their job, and the other person has to guess before the first person gets to the end of the clues. Writing, challenging for our students in terms of supplemental, some sentence completion, which is sort of an easy way to get your students writing. And it also helps you find out a little bit about your students, and students find out about one another. And then, sort of starting from this point, you can see these questions, sentences are all related to work. We would sort of segue from completing the sentence into writing a story. It helps if you provide your students with a model, which you see here. I work at ShopRite, my hours are this, I am a food preparer. You would write that up for your students, and then they would use that model to tell you their story. The nice thing about this activity is it allows the students to write about something that's relevant to them, which is always easier for them. And it gives them the opportunity to communicate about their job and job skills in keeping with the rest of the lesson. Crossword puzzles, again from ISL Collective, and I do have these websites in the PowerPoint that you'll have access to. Higher level students, you would do some sentence building. You'll notice these sentences relate back to our scrambled sentences. So that you'd have the students unscramble the sentences, then later on come back and give them pieces of the sentence and have them put the rest together. Journal writing for high-level students. We're talking about work, so the topics you might choose, maybe my dream job, a typical day at work, my coworkers, that kind of thing. And then, how are we doing for time, Joe? Oop, I have like a minute left. Okay. A great activity to improve all skills is the language experience story, where if you're working with one student, the student would record, would tell you a story, and you would record it, and then use that story as a basis for the lesson, addressing vocabulary and grammar issues. If you have a group, you start with a picture like the one I'm showing you here, and the students would tell the story. They kind of go around, take turns, tell the story. That would be speaking. The tutor records the story and reads it back to the students for clarification. That'd be the listening piece. And then the students read the story and edit and rewrite it. So it's very nice, comprehensive activity for improving all skills. I was going to do them, but we don't have time. And the last thing in Ventures is the life skills section. So to supplement what they go through, you would want to bring in some real life materials. Here you'll see we have a sample resume, a job application, some different types of help wanted posters that you could talk about with your students. Okay. Sorry to rush through there at the end, but I know we have a few things we need to do. Are there any questions about any of that?